this very important and significant process of not just having a national reparations and compensation framework for victims of human rights violations, including victims of protest and demonstration, but the conversation around healing and reconciling the nation. Your Excellency, as a country, we cannot have a conversation about human rights, about reparations, about compensation, without honoring and recognizing the enduring and courageous role played by the late Right Honorable Raila Odinga, whose consistent advocacy for the respect of human rights and reparations for victims of violations has significantly contributed to sustaining this important national conversation. He was very passionate about addressing human rights violations as a critical step in confronting the historical, socioeconomic, and political challenges that have continued to affect our beloved nation. So today's event, Your Excellency, is therefore the greatest tribute that we can have as a nation to honor the legacy of the late Right Honorable Raila Odinga, and implementing the recommendations herein is a posthumous honor to his legacy. Your Excellency, your bold and deliberate decision to require this reparations framework demonstrates a profound understanding that the state's obligations to victims must be fulfilled through structured, principled, and time-bound action grounded in law, policy, and institutional commitment. This truly reflects our national moral obligation and profound need for justice, accountability, reconciliation, and national healing. It recognizes that sustainable peace cannot be built upon unaddressed grievances, and that genuine unity requires acknowledgement of past wrongs, restoration of dignity to victims, and a collective commitment to ensuring that such violations never recur. Your Excellency, the Commission accepted and embraced this responsibility with utmost humility, seriousness, unwavering resolve, and above all, a deep sense of national duty and commitment to justice. Your Excellency, this unprecedented national undertaking marks the first time in Kenya's history that the government has on its own initiative embarked on such a process, one that seeks to formally acknowledge that human rights violations occurred, and this landmark initiative signifies a clear commitment to move the nation from documenting to redressing, from acknowledgement to reform, and from recognition to accountability. Your Excellency, successive governments have received numerous reports documenting grave human rights violations, including the historic Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission report. These reports recorded violations, identified victims, and set out clear and concrete recommendations, including the establishment of mechanisms for reparations. However, Your Excellency, most of these findings remain largely unimplemented, leaving victims to endure prolonged and burdensome pain, loss, and unaddressed injustice without remedy. The report that we will be presenting to you today, Your Excellency, captures stories from victims and reminds us that behind every statistic that we will be presenting today is a human being, is a family, is a community whose suffering sometimes remains unseen and unacknowledged. And by giving a voice to these experiences, the report contributes to a national process of healing founded on truth, recognition, and remembrance. Your Excellency, the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution presented a transformative commitment to human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. Through the Bill of Rights, Kenyans are guaranteed freedoms of expression, association, assembly, and access to justice. However, despite these constitutional guarantees, violations sometimes continue to occur, particularly in the context of demonstrations, public protests, elections, and civic engagement. And this reality has underscored the need for a structured, effective reforms to bridge the gap between constitutional promises and lived experiences. Your Excellency, while the Constitution guarantees us rights, we must, as a matter of urgency, begin to have a national conversation on responsibilities as part of human rights. The conversation around responsibilities sometimes misses when we have conversations in the country. Responsibilities of the citizens as they exercise their rights and the responsibilities of the duty bearers as they carry out their duties. Responsibilities to ensure that our rights do not infringe on others and that exercise of rights does not lead to deaths, does not lead to injuries, does not lead to destruction of livelihoods, destruction of property, including public property, and which public property is expected to offer services to us as citizens. Your Excellency, we must now more than ever have a conversation on the cost of violent protests in Kenya. There is a significant cost on human lives, including deaths and injuries, and contribution to instability of the country. But violent protests also have significant short-term and long-term economic consequences for Kenya, affecting public finances, private sector growth, investment, employment, and overall economic stability. The impacts extend beyond the immediate destruction of property and often undermine development gains accumulated over the years. Your Excellency, violent protests lead to reduced economic growth. They disrupt business operations, transportation networks, and commercial activities. Businesses are forced to close temporarily, leading to reduced production, lower sales, declining tax revenues, and when protests occur repeatedly, economic growth slows as both domestic and foreign investors adopt a wait-and-see approach. For Kenya, where services including trade, tourism, and agriculture are major contributors to GDP, prolonged disruption can significantly reduce quarterly and annual economic growth. Your Excellency, violent protests leads to decline on foreign direct investment because investors consistently seek predictability, political stability, and security. And violent protests create perceptions of instability and increase investment risks. For a country such as Kenya, seeking to attract manufacturing, technology, and infrastructure investment, recurrent unrest significantly undermines competitiveness. Allow me, Your Excellency, to just give you an example of how we have incurred costs, especially in the 2025 protests. And going by the data from the Ministry of Interior, the protests that took place between June and July of 2025 has costed the country a whopping loss of about Kenya shillings 3 billion. And this is just 1 month's loss. Your Excellency, 3 billion can go a long way in meeting a lot of our national obligations. And as a country, we cannot afford to sustain consistent losses as a result of violent public protests. And as Kenyans, we must understand that these losses mean digging deeper into our pockets to recover these losses, and as such, it must be our shared responsibility to ensure that we exercise our rights responsibly. Your Excellency, allow me now to focus on the assignment that the Commission was given to undertake, and to note that in the development of this framework and the accompanying guidelines, the Commission was guided by international standards on reparations, particularly the basic principles and guidelines on the right to a remedy and reparation for victims of gross human rights violation under international human rights law, as adopted by the UN General Assembly in December of 2005. In this process, we as a country have demonstrated our ability to ensure adoption of the highest standards in implementing our human rights obligations, especially as a respected member of the United Nations. The Commission took into account and carefully drew lessons from prior national processes, particularly draft legislations, policies, and reparations processes that have already been proposed. And this includes the draft Kenya Reparations Bill of 2019, as well as policy and regulatory proposals presented to the Attorney General in 2029, by civil society organizations under the leadership of the Kenya Transitional Justice Network. Your Excellency, despite significant time constraint, this process was undertaken through extensive consultations, public participation, and technical engagements with various stakeholders, including victims, civil society organizations, constitutional commissions, independent officers, state agencies, and members of the public, all of whom enriched this process with invaluable perspectives and expertise. In compliance with Article 10 of the Constitution of Kenya, the Commission subjected the draft guidelines to a robust public participation process and received a total of 281 submissions from members of the public in the form of memoranda, letters, proposals, and these have contributed significantly to the final framework that we submit today. So, Your Excellency, the framework presented today therefore proposes a raft of reparations, including compensation, rehabilitation, restitution, satisfaction, and guarantees of non-repetition. And these are standard reparative justice measures used in transitional justice and human rights contexts to address human rights suffered by victims of violations. The framework, therefore, seeks to establish a victim-centered, transparent, and accountable system capable of delivering accessible and effective remedies in accordance with the Constitution and international human rights standards. Further, Your Excellency, the report the Commission is submitting today includes a list of victims who reported violations, including those arising in the context of demonstration and protests, in line with Your Excellency's proclamation. The report therefore captures cases documented by the Commission, cases from the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, and other cases received through various government institutions, including the Ministry of Interior, documented within the 60-day period. However, allow me to note, Your Excellency, that more cases have been documented subsequent to the finalization of this report involving individuals who equally qualify for inclusion in this list. The Commission therefore humbly requests that Your Excellency considers reparations for these cases in subsequent process, of course taking into account issues around budgeting processes. Your Excellency, the report that we shall shortly present to you documents and identifies cases of violations that were widespread or systemic in nature. Accordingly, the Commission documented violations arising in 2017 and 2022, which were largely linked to disputes and protests around the general elections. But we also documented protests from 2023 and 2024 protests, particularly during the Finance Bill and Gen Z protests. And we also documented victims from the 2025 Sabasaba demonstrations. And the Commission did this acknowledging that not all cases reported to the Commission qualify as gross human rights violations for reparations, as some were isolated criminal acts, including those committed by individual police officers and other citizens, which Your Excellency, we believe, should ideally go through the criminal justice processes. Your Excellency, in identifying victims, the Commission also acknowledged that Thank you. In identifying victims, the Commission also acknowledged that a number of human rights cases documented before this period had already been captured and included in the TJRC report. Your Excellency, the Commission therefore makes a general recommendation for the full implementation of that particular report. The Commission documented 1,815 claims and received another 1,022 from the Independent Policing Oversight Authority and others from the Ministry of Interior. And through this process, Your Excellency, the Commission has so far verified and obtained consent from a total of 1,101 victims across 6 categories of violations, which include deaths, that's the right to life, which has about 245 victims, We've documented issues around persons who were injured, about 135 victims. The majority of the victims were those who were arrested, who make up a total of 473 victims, but we've also documented cases of sexual violence, about 75 victims, and cases around the right to property, which is 138 victims. Your Excellency, while the report acknowledges and makes recommendations on various reparation components, the Commission wants to categorically state that compensation is just one of those components of reparations. And this is in acknowledgement that as a country, we sometimes have resource constraint, and the report highly recommends that priority be given to collective reparations, especially for regions and areas that have historically suffered from the effects of protests. A lot of these communities have also suffered economic marginalization, and communal reparations and social protection initiatives will go a long way in healing and reconciliation within these communities. The Commission also notes that collective reparations offers an important opportunity for healing fractured communities, rebuilding social cohesion, and restoring confidence in public institutions. Investments in community infrastructure, psychosocial support services, memorial sites, and community development initiatives can serve not only as remedies for past harms, but also as symbols of the national commitment to reconciliation and inclusive development. Your Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the Commission has made several recommendations in this report, including enactment of a reparations law, and this will require commitment from all arms of government as well as from the citizenry, and not just for its enactment, but also for its implementation. The Commission has also made a specific recommendation on the operationalizing Article 37 of the Constitution to provide a legislative framework for demonstrations, picketing, and assemblies. And allow me, Your Excellency, to say and to report that we've already put up a team to draft proposals on this particular article. And we believe that it will ensure that this right is exercised responsibly. And Your Excellency, we hope to make very radical proposals in the proposed framework, including using technology to support the exercising of this right. And Your Excellency, we acknowledge that you're big on technology, and we believe that this is the right time to leverage on technology to help citizens who want to demonstrate peacefully to do so, and to also assist law enforcers to identify criminals who disrupt such demonstrations, but also police who sometimes use unnecessary force during assemblies. Thank you. Your Excellency, because of the magnitude of this process and the recommendations made, the Commission notes that implementation of compensations and reparations must involve all stakeholders. Your Excellency, I have the floor today to speak to you, so allow me to take this opportunity to briefly address the challenges faced by the Commission, which has historically received limited budgetary allocation to undertake its constitutional mandate. Your Excellency, yet the Commission plays a very critical role in ensuring that our country complies with its national, regional, and international human rights obligations. Globally, both multilateral and bilateral partners increasingly require that technical support, arrangements, and agreements, including those relating to trade, health, defense, be implemented through a human rights-based approach. This means that the Commission must support government agencies in integrating human rights standards into these processes. Your Excellency, our humble appeal as a constitutional commission is for the government to allocate adequate and sustainable funding to enable the Commission to continue to effectively discharge its mandate and fulfill its constitutional obligations. The Commission has continued to put Kenya on the global map by maintaining its A status as a national human rights institution, and your support, Your Excellency, will elevate the profile of Kenya as a country that is committed to strengthening and creating strong institutions as a cornerstone for democracy. The Commission remains committed to supporting the implementation of these recommendations and to continuously monitor the enforcement of the recommendations herein and to keep Your Excellency updated on progress of the implementation. Your Excellency, allow me to once again, on behalf of the Commission, staff of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, and most importantly, on behalf of the victims for whose voices informed this process, to sincerely thank you for this historic initiative that will shape the future of our nation. Kenya has taken an important step towards healing historical wounds, strengthening national unity, and building a society founded on justice, human dignity, accountability, and respect for human rights. The true measure of this process will not be only in the submission of this report, but in the subsequent processes towards ensuring lives are restored, trust is rebuilt, and hope renewed among Kenyans. And our prayer today, Your Excellency, is that this initiative will stand as a lasting testament that Kenya values every life, every voice, every citizen, and that collectively we can journey towards a more just, united, and reconciled nation. And at this stage, Your Excellency, it is my pleasure as the chairperson of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights to formally present this report, the reparations guidelines, the list of victims, and the proposed legislation on reparations today for your consideration and action as the beginning of a new chapter in which Kenya moves towards a structured, credible, sustainable process of addressing human rights violations, rebuilding public trust in institutions, promoting reconciliation amongst communities, and laying the foundation for lasting national healing. Thank you very much for this opportunity to serve the nation, and we pray that God continues to bless all of us and to bless our country, Kenya. Thank you very much.
We will now invite His Excellency to receive the report. The first frame will be His Excellency to receive the report from the Chair. I'll request that the rest of us remain seated. We have cameras at the back, so we'd like to get every frame. So the first frame will be His Excellency receiving the report. Makofi tafadhali. Allow me, with your permission, Your Excellency, to also invite the following for the second frame. His Excellency, the Deputy President, the Honorable Chief Justice, Majority Leader, National Assembly, Minority Leader, National Assembly, the Honorable Attorney General, CS Interior, Chair JLAC, Chairperson COJ, and Chair of the Panel of Experts on Compensation, to also receive the report. Let's also have the two speakers, Speaker of the National Assembly and Speaker of the Senate. Thank you, Your Excellency. I'll now usher in or invite the Deputy Chief of Staff, State Affairs, Honorable Josephat Nanok, to continue with the program.
Your Excellency, sir, permit me now to invite Professor Makau Mutua, the Chairperson of the Panel of Experts on Compensation, to make a few remarks.
Good morning. Your Excellency, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya, and the Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, Your Excellency, Professor Kithure Kindiki, the Deputy President, the Honorable Martha Koome, the Chief Justice, the Speakers of the two Houses, Mr. Kingi and Mr. Wetangula, the Majority Leader, Mr. Kimani Ichung'wah, the Minority Leader, Mr. Junet Mohammed, Dr. Oburu Oginga, Minister Murkomen, the AG Dorcas Oduor. Allow me to ride on the protocols that have been established before me. Your Excellency, Mr. President, today you have received from the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights the report and draft guidelines that you required the Commission to prepare. Your Excellency, this ceremony is not a formality. It is, with respect, the keeping of a sacred and constitutional promise, your own promise to look into the welfare of those Kenyans who are afflicted. Permit me, Your Excellency, to recall briefly how we got here. The Constitution at Article 132 enjoins the President to ensure the protection of human rights and fundamental freedoms and the upholding of the rule of law. It further empowers the President under Article 254(2) to require a commission or independent office to submit a report on any particular issue within its mandate. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, Your Excellency, is established under Article 59 of our Constitution as the principal organ of the state that is responsible for ensuring compliance with our obligations under international human rights treaties. Under Section 8 of the Commission's Human Rights Act, the Commission is empowered to investigate matters of human rights, to make recommendations for the better functioning of state organs, and to take steps to secure appropriate redress where human rights have been abridged. Your Excellency, it was in the exercise of these powers that by presidential proclamation you required the Commission to develop and submit a framework to guide the provision of compensation and reparations to victims of violations of human rights, including those arising from demonstrations and public protests. Your Excellency, having discharged that mandate, the Commission on the 8th of May this year submitted its report to the head of the Public Service for transmission to Your Excellency. Your Excellency, it is that report for which this Assembly is convened today at State House, solemnly to hand over to you that report. Your Excellency is constitutionally charged with a solemn obligation to ensure that the human rights of all Kenyans are protected. Your Excellency, that duty is not abstract. It is owed to every Kenyan who exercises the rights guaranteed under the Constitution, including the right under Article 37 to assemble, to demonstrate, to picket, and to petition. Your Excellency, this is the Constitution working exactly as it was designed. Your Excellency did not direct the Commission as to what its conclusions were going to be. Nor did Your Excellency supervise their judgment. You exercised a power the Constitution gives you under Article 254(2) to require a report, and the Commission has done so. The Office of the President and an independent commission have each played their distinct part in mutual respect toward a common public good. That is the relationship the Constitution envisions between the executive and the independent commissions. Not subordination, not direction, but complementarity. This handover, therefore, is itself an act of democratic governance. It is proof that constitutional institutions, when they hold to their respective mandates, can together deliver justice to citizens. And in receiving this report, Your Excellency, you are performing your human rights obligations in the most concrete way that our Constitution envisions, turning the duty to protect into a practical pathway to redress, to reconcile, and to heal the nation. Your Excellency, on March the 6th this year, you appointed the panel of experts on compensation of victims of human rights violations, including from demonstrations and public protests, through Gazette Notice 3115, and instructed us to compensate victims of human rights violations by the reparations framework that the Commission has presented to you. Your Excellency, the panel charged with the implementation is required by its establishing instrument to discharge its mandate in a transparent, accountable, and auditable manner. The Commission's reparations guidelines, the framework developed by the Commission, which directs the panel is to undertake the compensation exercise, provide for mandatory verification of the eligibility of every single claimant. In discharge of its mandate, the panel has developed a case management system and procedures that ensure that each and every claim is verified and a determination of eligibility made before any recommendation for reparations is made. The system that we have developed, Your Excellency, stores in an easily searchable manner all the evidence relied on for each single victim, the panel's decision in relation to the medical evidence, and the medical recommendation made to it by the medical professionals working with the panel. And finally, the panel's decisions on quantum. The system also logs and records the entire payment process. Your Excellency, this system is the panel's way of ensuring the integrity of the compensation process and of guaranteeing that the process can be fully audited. Under it, independent auditors will have the ability to follow up and to verify every coin that has been spent. We have, Your Excellency, created a system for the ages, if I may say so. A system that will be in use for many years to come. Your Excellency, to date, my panel has received the names of approximately 1,100 victims from the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights and a further 1,200 from the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, with some overlap between the two lists. The panel has also received over 200 names of victims from the security agencies, the National Police Service, the Prison Service, and the National Youth Service. And in addition, we have also received over 160 names of persons whose businesses were damaged and who suffered economic loss. The panel, Your Excellency, is now subjecting all of these names to verification, assisted by its AI integrated case management system, and will be in a position, Your Excellency, to begin making payments in as short a time as a week from today. To the victims and to the families who have suffered grief, loss, and injury, I say this. This report is an acknowledgement that your suffering has been seen, and that the state accepts its duty to repair. This report is one step towards national atonement. We will proceed, Your Excellency, in accordance with the law and the Constitution and the directions of the court, because justice that is delivered lawfully is justice that endures. Your Excellency, let me just say, as I conclude, that your partner in this exercise, who initially you thought of this project with, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, is not here with us today. I know, Your Excellency, you carry his dreams and ambitions on this project in your heart. And Your Excellency, let me say that there is no better way to honor the late Honorable Raila Odinga than to repair our people, than to walk the last mile of this journey, to turn a new leaf in our human rights culture. Your Excellency, previous governments have known that we have a problem with the question of the exercise of expressive rights. Lives have been lost, Your Excellency, but previous governments did not take the step that we have taken. Your Excellency, we honor you for this bold step. And I want to say, Your Excellency, the clarion call for this exercise must be never again. No more shall the lives of our people be lost as they exercise their democratic rights. Never again, Your Excellency. Nunca más in Spanish. Thank you so much.
Your Excellency, allow me also to invite a few other leaders to make remarks. The Honorable Junaid Mohammed, Minority Leader of the National Assembly.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces, His Excellency, the Deputy President, my leader in Parliament and my boss, the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Speaker of the Senate, my party leader, Dr. Oburu Oginga, and my friend, the Chair of the Council of Governors, Hamjambo. Good morning. Your Excellency, I am very happy and proud to be here today for this event because, Your Excellency, as you are aware, in the history of this country, I don't think there is any party, political party, that has faced the brunt of human rights violations than my party, ODM. Your Excellency, I come from a party that has faced the brunt of injustice and human rights violations, and I also come from a region that has also faced the brunt of human rights violations, Your Excellency. I'm now an old man, but I've spent the lower part of my life demonstrating, Your Excellency. We have been demonstrating from when I joined the demonstration was in 2002, I was 24 years old. Then I found you on the way in 2007. Then you detoured, you left us there, still continuing demonstrating. Then we continued the demonstration in 2013. We continued in 2017. One of the incidents, Your Excellency, that I cannot forget is after the elections of 2017. I went to receive my late party leader at the airport. He was coming back from overseas trip. And Your Excellency, we were in a convoy. That time, even the Speaker was part of, before he detoured also, was part of that journey. So, Your Excellency, when we left the airport, and we were doing a peaceful demonstration, as we said, and we came from the airport, we came through Mombasa Road, then we joined Likoni Road. Between Likoni Road Junction and Landis Road, Lusaka Road, Your Excellency, risasi ililia. We lost 17 people there on the spot, Your Excellency. There are pictures. I remember I went with my former party leader to the city mortuary one time, Your Excellency, and those photos are there. I have them in my records. And we had 40 coffins in one day, Your Excellency, sending them to where I come from, that part of the country. So, Your Excellency, I want to thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart, because these problems have been there in the previous governments, but no one had the courage to accept that we need to address these issues of human rights violations, other than yourself, Your Excellency. I was privy and part of discussions between you and my former party leader on this issue, Your Excellency. There was the report of the NATCO that was presented to you. There was the report of the 10-point agenda. Many people never believed that those reports will be implemented. But today we are here implementing the NATCO report and implementing the 10-point agenda. When my party leader came to see you over this matter, Your Excellency, you never hesitated. I was present, I must say. You said, this is one issue that we must address as a country, and I will be on the forefront to make sure that it is implemented. And I am sure where he is today, because I know how close this matter was to his heart. I know wherever he is, Your Excellency, he is very happy. But what pains me also politically, Your Excellency, is the people who perpetuated these evil, things are today the reformists of the country. They are the defenders of human rights. That is what pains me also. You see, people who we lost Pendo in their hands are today the defenders of human rights in our country, and they want us to listen to them. So let's give Kenyans a break. Let's be honest with Kenyans. And let's accept our sins. I know whom we used to complain about when I was in the street. And today is the same person who's telling me, I'm reforming this country, I want to win this election and defeat this government so that I can reform this country, I'm a human rights defender, and we know each other. We have been around for some time now. That is why we look as a party this time more intelligent than we used to be. Tumesoma watu. So Your Excellency, when this matter came up and you graciously accepted that we need to implement the 10-point agenda, many people did not believe. I know even some of the people now who are shouting to my party outside there never believed that the 10-point agenda will be implemented. They thought with the death of my party leader, that will be the end of the 10-point agenda. But today we are here. And I'm happy when this issue came up from our party, Your Excellency. You know, we have donated many experts to you as a party. My party leader identified the professor from upstate New York, Harvard trained, to spearhead this matter on our behalf as a party. And you could see the English, Your Excellency, I'm speaking, and the one you spoke. Your Excellency. So and then also, I am very happy that the Kenya National Human Rights is led by someone, Your Excellency, whom I have been demonstrating in Migori with her mother, her brother, her sister. She was working for the United Nations, but I was demonstrating with her mother in the town. So I'm happy now she knows what her mother has gone through. And I'm happy that she's the one now implementing. I am very excited about that also. So with those few remarks, Your Excellency, I want to thank you so much. We will support as Parliament any efforts that will make the next demonstrations to be peaceful, to be within the law and within the Constitution. We will support as leaders, as party, and as Parliament, Your Excellency, because I will support demonstrations peacefully, because I don't want to lose demonstrations as ODM going forward. Even in the next 50 years, I want to still keep it. But I want it now to become more peaceful, more law orderly, and more constitutional. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Your Excellency, sir, allow me also to invite Honorable Kimani Ichung'wa, the Majority Leader of the National Assembly, who was co-chair of the de facto National Dialogue Committee.
Thank you, Nonok. Your Excellency, the President, the Deputy President, the Chief Justice, the Party Leader, ODM, and observing all protocols already established. Allow me, Your Excellency, also to congratulate you and the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, led by the Chairperson, Clarice Oganga, for the very splendid job that they have done in putting together this framework for the reparation of victims of our past injustices. Your Excellency, I remember way back in 2023, when yourself and the late former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, appointed us, 10 of us, to lead in the deliberations through the National Dialogue Committee. This and the question of the cost of living was one of the most sticking points that we took a lot of time and listened to very many Kenyans on. And I recall, Your Excellency, when we finalized the report and we made our way to Capitol Hill to present the copy of the NADCO report to the former Prime Minister. He took not less than 10 minutes speaking on this issue. And having appreciated the work that we had gone through and the issues that were raised in the NADCO report, I remember the former Prime Minister telling us, those of us who were in that room, in his boardroom at Capitol Hill, that the call for reparation was not a call for compensation. And he said there is no amount of money that you can give to compensate human life or even the loss of property. And he told us that reparations go beyond monetary compensation. It's about restorative justice to the people who have suffered human rights violations, injury, loss of life, and loss of property. And to join my colleagues, Honorable Junet Mohamed, the Chair, Kenya National Human Rights Commission, Professor Makau Mutua, who we engaged as a former chair of this commission, I must say that today is indeed a great day for our country. And allow me, Your Excellency, to thank you and pay glowing tribute to the former Prime Minister for his commitment and dedication to see that this day comes to fruition. Because beyond the NADCO report of 2023, when again we sat on the 10-point agenda, this issue was again topical amongst the issues that the former Prime Minister raised with you. Your Excellency, as Junet Mohamed has said and Makau Mutua have said, you are not the first president of this country to deal with this issue, but you are the leader and the president who has had the courage and determination to deal with the issue of reparation and restorative justice in our country effectively and with finality, Your Excellency. That courage we must commend you for. And I remember one of the people that were with the NADCO Secretariat, at a point when we had a stalemate and we were asking, where would a country like ours with the economy that we have and had even then in 2023 get the resources to compensate victims of all past injustices? And I remember when we said we will go beyond 2023 demonstrations back to 2017, we asked ourselves, how do you even identify the victims? Where do you get the resources to compensate them? But Your Excellency, as the chair of the commission has said, and as the former Prime Minister told us, this is beyond monetary compensation. It is about restorative justice and making every Kenyan feel part and parcel of our country moving forward. Allow me, Your Excellency, to conclude by congratulating you again for your courage and confidence that this can be done within our lifetime. It took Your Excellency 2 weeks ago, again, to offer a national apology to the people of Northern Kenya for their historical injustices of marginalization, and that takes leadership and it takes courage. It has taken you again courage and the support of many of the people in this room, the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, and as I said, with immense tribute to the former Prime Minister, his courage to continue fighting for justice for Kenyans many who would never know the sacrifices that he had to go through to get this to fruition today. With those few remarks, Your Excellency, thank you and congratulations to yourself and the Kenya Human Rights Commission. As Junet Mohamed has committed, I will also commit as the leader of the majority in the National Assembly that whatever legislative proposals the Kenya Human Rights Commission will bring forth to enact into law, we will support for the betterment of our country. I look forward to a country, as Junet Mohamed, who keeps telling me he is a product of demonstrations and protests, that you would never want to see a nation without demonstrations and protests. But I look forward, like he does, to having processions, protests, and demonstrations that are peaceful, where people assemble in designated places. And Your Excellency, we must learn from Arsenal fans as much as you are an Arsenal fan together with my speaker. Recently, we saw droves of thousands of young people right in the middle of our central business district. They had their procession, celebrated, and left without anybody being stolen from or anybody's shop being looted, without a single vehicle being stoned, and without a single person among us, those who are in that procession, getting injured, arrested, or even killed. Recently, Your Excellency, you co-hosted the Africa Front Summit. We had demonstrators, some who were even imported from outside this country, because I saw a number of foreigners protesting in the Central Business District. Again, peacefully, and everybody left and went back to their businesses without any injury or harm. Even those who are protesting against acts of femicide in our country, Your Excellency, we have seen the same. How I look forward in the near future to having a country where we shall have processions, protests, demonstrate, and we all allow each other to go about our businesses, even as we remember that the men and women in blue, and or rather in uniform, are also part and parcel of our national fabric and deserve respect. And I must thank the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, because I've seen in the report that they have also taken care of forces. With those many remarks, thank you, Excellency.
Thank you, sir. May you allow me now to invite the Honorable Kipchumba Murkomen, the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration.
Your Excellency, the President, the Deputy President, the Speakers of both Houses, the Chief Justice, the leadership of Parliament, leadership of governors, the Chair of the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, my colleagues present, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Your Excellency, it gives me really great pleasure to be here this morning and appreciate the work that has been done by the Commission and the panel that you established, because the Chair really captured very well the contents of the report. We have been part and parcel of the process of supporting the work that you established yourself and the former Prime Minister. Your Excellency, when you sat with the former Prime Minister and agreed on the way forward, I was also called and given marching orders from your office that it was time that the national security architecture is seen to be humane, to be compassionate, to appreciate that even when we are doing our job, sometimes there would be a few people who may go astray and cause pain to families, and these are citizens of Kenya, and we must show compassion, and we must show that this practice must stop. First, let me say, Your Excellency, that since you came to office, even before I became the Cabinet Secretary for Interior, under the leadership of your Deputy President now, then the Cabinet Secretary, as a member of the Cabinet, I was privy to many discussions. You were very firm from day one that extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearance, killing of citizens must come to an end. This practice was informed by your personal experience. And having been part and parcel of your campaign, I remember days that you were stoned during campaigns. I remember one day somewhere, I think it was in Kieni, when your vehicles were destroyed. And those who were in office then, I remember when we asked for accountability, they said you were sympathy seeking. Your Excellency, as soon as you got to office, you said that the state cannot sanction destruction and killing of its citizens. We must end this practice. And so, Your Excellency, this is not just any other practice. For far too long, people have misunderstood who you are. But in the fullness of time, we are now almost 4 years into your administration. It's becoming clear that you are very thoughtful, you are very concerned about the citizens of this country. And as a person who serves in your administration, I know quite well, sitting with the Inspector General of Police, sitting together with the leaders in the security sector, we have received directions from you over and over again to be mindful of the welfare and the safety of the people of Kenya. Therefore, Your Excellency, as we move forward, we will be very deliberate in ensuring that these recommendations are implemented to the latter. Your Excellency, I need also to point out here that the right to demonstrate, the right to assemble, demonstrate, picket, and petition, as provided in Article 37 of the Constitution, must be implemented fully. But even as we implement that right, it is important, and I appreciate the chair of the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, that we have a clear framework that enables these Kenyans to enjoy their right, and that we can separate the goons, the violent criminals from those who are enjoying this right. Your Excellency, as part of our efforts to establish Nairobi Metropolitan City, we undertook a study, a visit to the New York Department, Police Department, NYPD, and the London Metropolitan Police Department. One of the questions I asked the leadership, including the Cabinet Secretary, my colleague from Britain, was how are you able to handle this issue of demonstrations? Sometimes we see huge demonstrations happening in New York, in London. How are they able to handle them peacefully? Your Excellency, the answer was unequivocal. Both in New York, you know, New York has suffered the brunt of terrorism and all kinds of criminal activities, including gangs in Harlem and other parts of New York. They were very, very critical that they do not compromise at all the question of criminal activity. If they see even one demonstrator carrying any form of weapon, they take the severest measure against those criminals. Your Excellency, it's because these developed nations separate completely, Your Excellency, the question of exercising your right and the question of safety of their people and the safety of their nation. And you see, there can be no enjoyment of a right without the responsibility. Those who come to public to enjoy their rights, they must appreciate that they have a responsibility to protect the rights of others. If we are going to become a nation that is going to have a peaceful demonstrations, we must separate completely, both by ourselves, by our media, by political leaders. We must differentiate between gangs, goons, violent people, arsonists. They are burning courts, they are burning people's businesses. They come to the street well prepared to come and loot and terrorize people. Rapists who are coming in the name of demonstration. We must call them for who they are and separate them from peaceful Kenyans who are undertaking demonstrations. Until the diction, the conversation in the public separates these two people, I find, and I've told journalists, including media editors, I find it very insulting that during news reporting, a reporter sitting somewhere on the streets is public saying, you see, the demonstrators are there, they are burning tires, the demonstrators are throwing stones, the demonstrators now have looted. They still use the constitutional diction of assembling, demonstrating, picketing, or petitioning, using a positive language to describe criminals, Your Excellency, and therefore normalize criminal activities in the name of petitions. And this is the reason why in Kenya, you know, we are unable to separate the work of the police when they are dealing with these criminals and the ones who are dealing with peaceful Kenyans. And therefore, sometimes the greatest frustration by police officers is that they arrest someone on site. There is a camera showing that this person has banned Kikuyu law courts. That person has banned a police station in Dagoretti. That person has banned a police station in Olkalau. They are arrested on site, taken to court. What does the court do? They offer fines of about 5,000, some of them on personal commitment, and they are released. And then they are glorified. Countries all over the world, where they have restored sanity in their nation, the judiciary, the executive, the legislature work together knowing that there is only one national interest. And I think I look forward to seeing the draft that the chair is going to provide and to see that national interest is going to be protected in this draft. Lastly, Your Excellency, I want to appreciate the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, the panelists, for capturing everybody, citizens who are victims and the police who became victims. The promise I give is that as a ministry, we will work very hard to ensure that our police officers are properly trained to support support Kenyans to enjoy this right. And for as long as organizers and ourselves work together for peaceful protests, we shall ensure that our police officers are marching together, hand in hand with the demonstrators, are singing together, and by 5 p.m. everybody going home safely, and we shall not have situations where Kenyans are losing their lives. To our friends who led this ministry before us and who are now giving us lectures about how to run the ministry, I want us to have an honest conversation together. Let them come to with their statistics of how much they caused havoc and damage to people's lives and the country, and we will come to ours to show them the great progress we have made since this administration came to place in the way we treat the people of Kenya. We do not want persons who destroyed our country yesterday pontificating as though we have forgotten what they did when they were here. We must be honest. If we want to build a honest country, we must also be honest about those who are in office, but those who are aspiring to hold public office. I thank you, Your Excellency, and may God bless you. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, sir, allow me to invite the Right Honorable Amason Kingi, the Speaker of the Senate.
Rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya na naibu wako, nikizingatia itifaki zote ambazo tayari zimetangulizwa. Rais, siku ya leo ni siku ya kihistoria ambao kwa mara ya kwanza waathirika wa maandamano wanapata fidia tangu wa Kenya wajipatie katiba ya mwaka 2010. Pili, ningependa kukongole Tume ya Kitaifa ya Haki za Kibinadamu kwa kutayarisha taarifa ile ambao wamepeana hivi leo. Pia kumkongole rais wetu katika uongozi wake kwa mara ya kwanza kulivalia njuga swala hili la waathirika wa maandamano. Kama vile mbunge wa Kikuyu alivyosema, wewe si rais wa kwanza kukodolewa macho na jambo kama hili. Waliotangulia hili jambo walikumbana nalo, lakini hawakuwa na ujasiri wa kujitolea mwafaka kuona ni vipi wanaweza kusaidia waathirika wa maandamano. Rais, nahodha mzuri hapati sifa wakati bahari imetulia. Nahodha mzuri atapata sifa wakati bahari ina mawimbi, lakini anadondosa meli mpaka bandarini. Huyo ni nahodha mzuri. Umejitolea kimasomaso na ukomavu, kitu ambacho kilishinda waliokutangulia. Leo hii umekifanya kimefanyika. Kongole rais wetu. Nimemsikiliza vizuri sana mwenyekiti wa Tume ya Kitaifa ya Haki za Kibinadamu na wale waliotangulia kuzungumza hapa. Yalozungumzwa ni muhimu, ni tisa, lakini la muhimu zaidi rais ni kwamba ni lazima kuwe na sheria ambayo itaeleza bayana jinsi jambo hili la maandamano ama hii haki ya kuandamana itafurahiwa vipi na Wakenya. Utakubaliana nami kwamba katika maandamano yote ambayo yamefanyika kuna wengi ambao walikiuka sheria na wakashikwa na polisi na wakapelekwa kotini, lakini kwa sababu hakuna sheria mwafaka, wengi sana ambao walishikwa na polisi baada ya kwisha waliachiliwa huru. Manake hakuna sheria inaweka bayana ukiukaji wa sheria wakati wa maandamano. Na jaji mkuu yuko hapa na wanasheria wako hapa. Kuna msemo wa Kilatini, a Latin maxim, rais, ambayo inasema kwamba nalam crimen sine lege. There can never be a crime without the law. hakuwezi kuwa na kosa la jinai pasipo sheria. Ndio maana ni muhimu sana, na nataka ni mkongole tena mwenyekiti wa Tume ya Kitaifa ya Haki za Kibinadamu kwa kusema kwamba baada ya kwisha wataleta sheria bunge ili itumike wakati maandamano yanafanyika. Tunataka tujue hii haki hii ambayo iko ndani ya katiba, Wakenya wataifurahia vipi? Na sheria hii si kubana kufurahia kwa haki hii kwa Wakenya, bali ni kuweka bayana ni vipi haki hii inaweza kufurahiwa na Wakenya. Manake ile sheria ikibana haki hii, bila shaka ikipelekwa kotini itaharamishwa. Kwa hivyo letu kama vile viongozi wa bunge walivyosema, na kisha kwamba sheria inapokuja pale, sisi kama washikadau tutaona ni vipi ambavyo tutasaidiana kuona kwamba ile sheria imepita. La mwisho ni kumuenzi Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga kwa ukakamavu wake kudhibiti safari ambayo ilikuwa na utelezi mkubwa, lakini alisimama kidete mpaka leo hii tumesimama hapa. Mimi nataka niwapatie kisa kimoja kuonyesha kwamba Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga ikija kwa mambo ya haki za kibinadamu hayumbi. Nakumbuka rais mwaka 2009 wakati wa serikali ya nusu mkate, Mheshimiwa marehemu Saitoti na alikuwa Attorney General Amos Wako walitumwa kule Uswizi Geneva na Mheshimiwa Rais Kibaki kwenda kutetea ama kuweka bayana ripoti ya Kenya ya haki za kibinadamu. Lakini baada ya kuangalia ile ripoti ambayo ilikuwa inapelekwa Uswizi kule Geneva, Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga alikosoa ile ripoti ile na akasema kwamba haiwezi kamwe ripoti hii kufika Geneva, ati hii ndio hiyo ripoti ya Kenya. Na walivutana na Rais Kibaki, na Rais Kibaki akakataa kubadilisha ile ripoti. Mheshimiwa Raila kwa sababu ya msimamo wake thabiti wa mambo ya haki za kibinadamu aliniita mimi na Mheshimiwa Orengo na akakata tikiti, akatuingiza kwa ndege twende Uswizi, na akasema kwamba wakati Saitoti akisimama ukumbini wakati Kenya napeana ripoti yake, msimame mpeane ripoti yetu pia. Rais, tuliabiri ndege kwenda Uswizi, mimi na Mheshimiwa Orengo. Mimi sikuwa na visa, lakini nikaambiwa wewe panda ndege, ukishuka utapata visa kule Uswizi, na nikapata visa wakati nilipoingia Uswizi. Na tulijadiliana usiku mzima rais na kina Saitoti, na tukamwambia sisi aidha mubadilishe, museme ukweli kuhusu ripoti ya haki za binadamu ya Kenya, au sivyo kesho kule ukumbini Kenya itapeana ripoti mbili. Tulisukumana mpaka usiku wa manane tukapata ripoti jumuishi ambayo ilitoa picha mwafaka ya Kenya katika mambo ya haki za binadamu. Na tulipofika ukumbini, Saitoti akasoma ile ripoti jumuishi. Tunamwenzi sana mzee Raila, na siku hii ingekuwa ni furaha kwake, lakini na hakika pale alipolala sasa anaangalia kwa furaha kubwa kwamba leo hii ama siku hii imefika katika safari hii ya Kenya. Asanteni na Mwenyezi Mungu atubariki sote.
Your Excellency, sir, allow me to invite next Honorable Moses Wetangula, the Speaker of the National Assembly.
Your Excellency, our President, Your Excellency, the Deputy President, I will follow the protocols as established. Your Excellency, today, like everybody has said, is a day like no other in the history of our country. We are here for a historic moment, and if I were in court, I would have told the judge, after listening to Clarice, that, my lord, she has said everything, I have nothing more useful to add. Because of the clarity, detail of her presentation. My distinguished friend, Professor Makau, you complimented what Clarice said very well. Your Excellency, the Holy Book, the Bible, says the beginning of healing lies in the acknowledgement of wrongdoing. And once you acknowledge that a wrong has been done, and adequate compensation or reparations or whatever we call it is done, society heals. The Bible also tells us the magic word in human relations is the simple word sorry, that makes people appreciate that they have been wronged, and whoever wronged them acknowledges that wrong. This country, as we have been told, has gone through some very perilous moments. But we come here today guided by your patriotic feeling, guided by our collective duty that we must heal our country. Your Excellency, at the beginning of this month, we were in Wajir, and I was really moved when I saw the governor of Wajir in the middle of his speech shedding tears. And I was very sure they were not crocodile tears. And he said he never believed that this could happen in northern Kenya in his lifetime. And it followed by your public apology to the people of northern Kenya. That apology alone in human relations is the greatest healer. That a wrong was done and a wrong is acknowledged. Today, as we celebrate this milestone in our constitutional and legal history, I'm also one of the victims of violence at some point in my political journey. The story of Junet on how we welcomed Raila Odinga in the famous mantra of Baba while you are away. We were chased by the police, brutalized along the way, and when we reached Uhuru Park along El Selassie Avenue, a bullet went through my car. On another occasion, we went to University Way, Junet, you remember, to demonstrate against what we thought was and believed was a non-responsive IEBC. And as we were being disbursed, some excited policeman lobbed a tear gas canister into a vehicle in which Raila and I were. Raila was significantly older than me, and he had serious difficulties breathing. I thought he would lose his life. Luckily, we had some water in the car, and I administered some first aid on him for us to escape. I like what Clarice said, that at the end of the day, is not paying some money to victims, at the end of the day is ensuring that we don't walk this dangerous journey again. And this will lie in clear legal framework. I want to encourage that as we move forward, those of you responsible for formulating draft laws, Interior, AG, and others, focus on, one, the need for education to our children right from primary on what human rights mean, how you enjoy them, your responsibility to others as you enjoy them, to have an orderly society. Two, those of us who have been in responsible positions of government, Your Excellency, if you go to New York for UN meetings, from morning to evening, there are groups of demonstrators and picketers across the avenue. There is no police attacking them. There are no objects being hurled at people. There are no obscenities being hurled at people. And they make their point, and in the evening they go away. You go to the House of Commons, across the road, you are told, come and demonstrate for 1 hour, you finish, you make your point, the others waiting to do the same. Because the act of demonstration is to make your point known, not to disrupt life. So we want to encourage that a law should be, in fact, laws, as Clarice proposed, and when they come to Parliament, we'll give them the opportunity and the time required so that everybody knows what you are expected to do in a situation of demonstrations. Otherwise, Your Excellency, when we have a free-for-all, a demonstrator leaves his house carrying a machete, carrying a missile, carrying all manner of crude weapons. That is not a demonstrator. I allowed this day, and I encourage my sister, the Chief Justice, and all other law enforcement agencies to rise to the occasion and realize that this country can be kept in order and our people can enjoy their rights if we all play our responsible duties well. Thank you.
Your Excellency, permit me to invite the Honorable Ahmed Abdullahi, the Chair of the Council of Governors and the Governor of Wajir, to come and say a few brief remarks on behalf of the 47 county governments.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, Excellency, the Deputy President, riding on established protocols. Your Excellency, I think I'll borrow from what the Speaker of the National Assembly just said, that there is nothing to add. Your Excellency, the report by the Kenya National Human Rights Commission was quite exhaustive in its summarization by the Chair, both in the methodology, in what they are suggesting in terms of changes to the law. I just want to take this opportunity to thank you and to posthumously thank my former party leader for conceptualizing this idea of restorative justice. It's not only about financial reparations, it's the acknowledgement and the healing journey. Your Excellency, the other day, I was just reminded, you became the first president to stand on stage and say sorry to the people of northern Kenya. And as someone who has lived through the atrocities of northern Kenya, and also a member of ODM, I understand how important this day is. So, Your Excellency, your actions have changed Kenya, and I think will change the way we treat each other as a people. Your Excellency, in recognition of the journey walked by yourself and the Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, our party leader is here, Oburu Oginga, and I hope he'll have also a word to say something on behalf of our party. Your Excellency, everything that I would have said has been said. Thank you. Thank you once again. And thank you, Your Excellency.
Your Excellency, sir, permit me now to call on stage Her Ladyship, the Chief Justice, Lady Justice Martha Koome.
Your Excellency, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenyan Defense Forces, Your Excellency, Professor Kithure Kindiki, the Deputy President, I recognize all other distinguished guests this morning and aligned on the protocols already established. Good morning, everybody. It is indeed an honor for me to join you today for the presentation of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights report on the framework for the compensation and reparation for human rights violations. I stand here on behalf of the judiciary and also the National Council on the Administration of Justice. I see the members of the council here, led by our Attorney General. All the members of NCJ, please be upstanding because we have been carrying this agenda. Thank you very much. We've been carrying this agenda, Your Excellency, on the President. I recognize all other distinguished guests this morning and aligned on the protocols already established. Good morning, everybody. It is indeed an honor for me to join you today for the presentation of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights report on the framework for the compensation and reparation for human rights violations. I stand here on behalf of the judiciary and also the National Council on the Administration of Justice. I see the members of the council here, led by our Attorney General. All the members of NCJ, please be upstanding because we have been carrying this agenda. Thank you very much. We've been carrying this agenda, Your Excellency, on the compensation and reparation, on the operationalization, on the fund for victims compensation. We've also been carrying the agenda on how can we manage the rights provided under Article 37 so that this Constitution of Kenya that has provided us broad provisions on protection of human rights and freedoms of expression does not endanger the lives of our people. So we've been thinking of how we can operationalize Article 37 with a statute, rules of procedure, and even SOPs. And today we are happy that those two very burdensome agendas have been taken from NCJ, but we will work with the Kenya Human Rights Commission, and we will work with the body led by my brother, Professor Makau, to see to it that we protect and we promote the human rights of Kenyans. So, Your Excellency, today's event comes at a particularly important moment in our constitutional journey, where we are actually implementing the rights that are guaranteed to our people. And it invites us to reflect on not only the protection of human rights, but also on the equally important question of what happens when those rights are violated. And I agree with all the speakers who have spoken that when you go out to exercise your constitutional rights, your life cannot be endangered. And because at NCAJ, we are duty bearers, all of us, and we've been interrogating this subject, Your Excellency, and we've been able to establish that we have peaceful demonstrations in this country that we can draw experiences from. I'm not a football fan, so I don't know about Arsenal, but I know doctors demonstrate and they do so peacefully. I know teachers demonstrate and they do so peacefully. Even lawyers. In fact, I was whispering to Honorable Junet, he started in 2000. I started demonstrations in 1989 when we were demonstrating for the repeal of Section 2A of our Constitution. So the Constitution that we are building and breathing life to today is a charter that was fought with the blood, that was fought with the demonstrations, and therefore today is a big celebration that our Constitution is truly transformative, and it is recognizing the rights of those who have given their lives to it. The Bill of Rights, Your Excellency, affirms that every person is entitled to the full enjoyment of fundamental rights and freedoms. It also places a corresponding obligation to all state organs and public institutions to respect, protect, and fulfill those rights. I was just saying, when we analyzed our demonstrations, we came to the conclusion is that the protests that have political connotations are the only ones that end up being violent, because we have not seen violence in other demonstrations. And therefore, we've been asking ourselves, how can we moderate the politicians? There are not many, Your Excellency. There are only 1,000, I think, the MCAs, the MPs, and everybody. But how can they make our lives unbearable when they have an issue and they cannot sort it in Parliament, they cannot sort it in the county assemblies, they bring them all over the place to disrupt the lives of other Kenyans. So I thank my sister Clarence and the entire Kenya National Human Rights Commission for coming up with a very concise report that guides us on how to create an harmonious society whereby we seek apology when we have gone wrong, when we bring everybody at the table to see how we can walk this journey together. Because both our Constitution, the international human rights law, recognize that the right to a remedy is itself a fundamental right. Therefore, a person whose right is violated is entitled to access justice and to receive appropriate and effective redress. Consequently, we are here because the state has recognized its obligation to ensure that victims of human rights violations have access to effective and prompt reparations for harm suffered. The right to reparations is thus the promise of our Constitution. It is the demand of justice and a requirement of the rule of law. Your Excellency, for this reason, I am particularly pleased to witness the presentation of this report. And today's event is a recognition that pursuit of justice extends to accountability and meaningful redress. As the institution constitutionally entrusted with the interpretation and protection of our Constitution and the enforcement of fundamental rights, the judiciary remains steadfast in our commitment to ensuring that constitutional guarantees are not just aspirational promises, but lived realities for all Kenyans. Just like justice is a lived reality, so is our Constitution a lived reality. And we shall continue to discharge our mandate independently, impartially, and faithfully in line with the Constitution. Importantly, we remain committed to contribute to the broader national effort of strengthening constitutionalism, accountability, and the rule of law. And as I conclude, allow me, Your Excellency, to once again commend the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights and thank you, Your Excellency, for convening this occasion. May this report serve as an important step towards strengthening our collective commitment to justice, accountability, and the protection of human rights for all Kenyans. I thank you all, and God bless this great nation. Thank you.
Your Excellency, sir, allow me now to invite the party leader of ODM, Senator Dr. Oburu Odinga, to make his remarks.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, William Samoei Ruto, the Deputy President, Honorable Kithure Kindiki, and all protocols observed. First of all, Your Excellency, I would like to say that I was not properly prepared for this occasion. This is because I don't know why I was not properly invited to the occasion, but I don't want to complain. I think it is because my brother is not there. If he was there, I'm very sure he would have been the first to be invited to this occasion, because he held the human rights very dearly to his heart, and he fought for it. He fought for it. The most half of his life was dedicated to fighting for human rights and liberation of our country. And I am from a family of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, the first Vice President of Kenya, who also fought for the independence of this country and kept on, though he became Vice President, but only for a very short stint. He enjoyed that, but he then went into the opposition. I came from abroad and found him already deeply in the opposition. And from that time, that was in the early 70s. From 1970. lived the life of demonstration. Junet says he started in 2002. We started from 1970. So the struggle has been long. It has taken very many years for Kenyans to change constitution, and now we have a new constitution, which is a very, very progressive constitution. It is the most progressive constitution, I think, in the Eastern and Western Africa. And this constitution gives provision, specific provision for human rights. And I'm very, very happy that the President, His Excellency, the President and my brother were working very closely on the issues of human rights. When we joined the President in this broad-based arrangement, one of the issues which was of concern to my brother was the issue of human rights. In our 10-point agenda, human rights takes precedence over all the other issues which we put forward. And I'm very happy, Your Excellency, that today at least this matter is being, at least we have started to conclude this very, very dear issue of human rights. And by calling it compensation, but it is not compensation. You cannot compensate a human life. Human life cannot be compensated, but what we are compensating, what we are doing is saying sorry to the families who lost their loved ones by giving them a token so that they can feel recognized that at least they contributed to the progress we are enjoying today. And therefore, Your Excellency, the process which is being concluded today, I'm very sure you are fully aware that this was initiated by you and my late brother, and I was there. When this process was initiated, it was Professor Mutua to carry it out. You know, us politicians, sometimes we like shortcuts, but the courts told us, no, it is not Professor Mutua to implement it. You go slow, it is the Human Rights Commission which should implement it, and the guidance of the court was taken, and the courts and the human rights are doing a good job. They have started to do what is actually symbolic in this process, and we appreciate them very much. I did not listen to their report fully, so I cannot comment on what they said, but Your Excellency, I appreciate the process itself, and I hope very soon they will start to touch the soul of those who are to be compensated, those who are to not compensated, those who are to be recognized and given some token. And I'm sure this is not the end, this is the beginning. And we hope that our country will never, going forward, will not have human rights violations at all. But let us establish this law, which we say is absent. Personally, I thought something had been done in Parliament to establish this law or to operationalize the Human Rights Act, but I mean provision in the Constitution. But I don't know, we have been with you for a long time in this Bunge. Somewhere in the corner of my thoughts, I thought that such a law had been created, and I remember that you had to give some notice to police 5 days before. Just notice, not apply for permit. You give them notice and they provide you with security, and you state exactly from where you want to demonstrate up to where, from what time to what time, so that security can be provided for you to do demonstrations. I thought there was something like that, but if it is not there, then let us expeditiously establish one so that we can have a law which guides demonstrations, so that Kenyans can demonstrate peacefully without being disturbed and being protected by their own police, because they are the ones who pay the police. Let Kenyans pay the police who protect them, not the police who kill them. Because if you use a bullet, that bullet is bought by the mwananchi you are killing. So we should not allow that situation where our own bullets are used to fight, to kill our people. And let Kenyans know that when you go to demonstrate peacefully, you don't carry a machete, you don't carry a stone, and you don't carry any weapon at all. You just go to demonstrate. And if you see anybody carrying a knife or carrying a stone, you know that that is a goon. And those goons are not few. There are very many. Almost every politician is nowadays recruiting a goon to go and disrupt functions. I think that's the nature of goonism, where you have goons who are for hire by everybody. They are hired by both sides. This one hires them today, tomorrow you go and hire them and you pay them and they come, and that's nature of goonism. We as leaders should take care. We must make sure that that culture is stopped completely from our country. This culture of goonism must go. Let us let our wananchi who are aggrieved go to the streets, demonstrate, and follow the law, but not carry any weapons. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Your Excellency, sir, permit me now to invite His Excellency the Deputy President, Professor Kithure Kindiki, to come and make his remarks, and later on invite you to address the nation.
Your Excellency William Ruto, President of the Republic and Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, all protocols observed. Today is one of my proudest moments since I left law school nearly 30 years ago. Your Excellency, we are gathered here at your official residence as head of state to reflect on the journey we have traveled with one another as a country, as a nation. And I think, Mr. President, because my speech will not be more than 3 minutes, allow me to just make a small contribution of what I make of this gathering and the subject matter. I have listened to my sister, the chair of the National Commission on Human Rights, and other speakers who have spoken before me. And I think the National Commission on Human Rights has helped us clarify why we are here and why we are not here. The reason we are here and the reason which is not what brings us here. Your Excellency, justice involves so many things, including retribution, where we punish people who do certain things by locking them up, and in many jurisdictions some are even killed, depending on the crimes they have committed. And that is justice. It is retributive justice. It is retribution. But there is also another facet of justice, which is restorative, where you restore relationships between the offender and the victim of offenses. It is my humble submission, Your Excellency, we are gathered here this morning to advance the agenda of our country more in the area of restorative justice and repairing relationships among ourselves. That's why we are here. Nothing prevents the criminal law justice system to continue with what it has been doing. All what you are saying is that there is another facet of justice that has stalled and has never been operationalized. Restorative justice, and it is more powerful sometimes and has greater effects and a bigger return on investment than retribution. Your Excellency, therefore, today we are not talking compensation. We are talking reparation, because we cannot compensate death. I mean, it's unimaginable. But we are also looking at ourselves and saying, we have hurt one another. Law enforcement agencies, ourselves as citizens, across board. But we are also saying we have realized there are gaps in our legal system which we must fill, because Article 37 is very wide. The right to assemble, the right to demonstrate, the right to picket, the right to petition authorities. We are just concentrating on the demonstration part. There is the right to assemble without demonstrating. But there is also the right to picket and the right to petition. So this is the problematic part. The most problematic part on this right on Article 37 has been the demonstration part, and has been already articulated by the Chief Justice, my Lady Justice Comey. Even in that 1 out of 4, the demonstration part of that right, because the right is in 4 parts, we have had numerous cases of exemplary and successful demonstrations, peaceful and constitutional, by various people, professionals, trade unions, and all manner of people advancing certain causes. The challenge in that demonstration right has been political demonstration. That is where the problem is. So let us not generalize that provision or generalize even the whole activity of demonstration. But we're also saying, Your Excellency, we must settle accounts. We must reconcile with one another. We must repair. And that's why some form of reparations are token here, are sorry here. And this is a very complex space we have ventured into, the space of transitional justice. Very complex, and many countries do not want to address this issue. Many democracies today who have been independent for over 200 years have still pending issues around restorative justice. So we have started a journey. I want to agree with those who have advanced that position. It's going to take centuries, but there is always a starting point, and I'm very proud, Your Excellency, to be your deputy at a time when you are the President of Kenya, who has faced this issue head on. Excellency, two last quick things. One is to say that that legal thing, that legal discussion must balance crime and punishment, even as we talk about reparation. I say so because I know Speaker Kingi talked about the principle of nulla criminal sine lege, which is there is no crime without law. But likewise, there is nulla poena sine lege, that there is no punishment without law. And the two must be proportionate. The crime, the gravity, and the gravity of punishment must be balanced if we have to resolve and get the deterrence that we require. Finally, Your Excellency, the President, I look forward to a day where in this country, a political leader of whatever stature, character, and opinion will organize what in their view is a legitimate demonstration, make sure that they control their supporters and hold both their supporters and the leaders hold each other accountable for the process, and then be assisted by the police to carry out the demonstrations and say what they don't like and go home in the evening. That is the dream of this country. The millions of Kenyans who have nothing to do with politics. In fact, the Chief Justice has I know she has understated our numbers. We are not 1,000. We are 1,800 or thereabout. But the consequence is the same. 2,000 people cannot frustrate 55 million Kenyans who do not earn their living from politics like us. And we must be called to order, and we must make sure that we don't make this country dangerous for the 55 million Kenyans that do not earn a living from politics. With those many remarks, Your Excellency, colleagues, allow me to request that we stand as we welcome the head of
distinguished guests, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. This is historic as it is consequential. This is a very significant moment and a solemn one at that. It is solemn because today we seek to make amends for harms that have never been truly repaid. No compensation can restore a life lost. No reparation can fully erase the pain of a parent who buried a child, a spouse who lost a partner, or a family forever changed by tragedy. It is also solemn because I wish that our late brother, the statesman Raila Odinga, was here with us today. But I want to thank his brother, now party leader of ODM, Dr. Oburu Oginga, for making it to this function. And party leader, I want to apologize for the late notification for this meeting. Although you have spoken and made a statement that is more profound than those who prepared to come for this meeting. This is one of the commitments we made to the Kenyan people. It was born out of a shared conviction that Kenya could not continue traveling the same painful road, generation after generation, protest after protest, tragedy after tragedy. Today, we take an important step towards fulfilling that commitment. I am happy that the Honorable Oburu Odinga is here to represent my late brother, the Honorable Raila Odinga. Many have spoken about these issues over the years. Many have acknowledged the pain. Many have promised action. Today, however, we move beyond words. I stand here pleased that we have reached this milestone, saddened by the circumstances that have made it necessary, humbled by the trust placed in us by victims and their families, and optimistic that this marks the beginning of the end of a painful chapter in our national life. Our country has been undergoing profound socio-economic and political transformation. Across Kenya, citizens have consistently expressed a desire for a future that is more just, more inclusive, and more responsive to their aspirations. Never before, however, have Kenyans expressed such a deep and widespread yearning for change and renewal. That yearning is legitimate, it is democratic, and it is protected by the Constitution. The right to assemble, demonstrate, picket, and petition under Article 37 is not a favor from the state. It is a constitutional guarantee. It is one of the freedoms that define us as a democratic nation. Yet, we must also confront an uncomfortable truth. For far too long, whenever Kenyans have exercised these rights, too often the outcome has been violent, injury, loss of life, destruction of property, bitterness, and division. Families have buried loved ones. Young people have carried physical and emotional scars. Businesses have been destroyed. Police officers have been injured. Communities have been left traumatized. We must also acknowledge a difficult reality. There has been instances where the response to public demonstrations has resulted in excessive use of force, violations of rights, and loss of life. Equally, there has been occasions when legitimate protests have been infiltrated by criminal elements, leading to violence, looting, destruction, and harm to both citizens and law enforcement officers. The truth is that whenever this cycle unfolds, Kenya loses. Citizens lose. Families lose. Businesses lose. The police lose. And our democracy is diminished. Then, almost predictably, the blame game begins. One side points to police brutality. Another points to criminal elements and organized violence, to goons. Politicians trade accusations. Television studios fill with rage and outrage. The nation mourns, and then we move on, only to repeat the cycle again. Perhaps what is most painful is how easily the suffering of victims is sometimes reduced to political slogans. It is easy to exploit public grief for political gain. It is easy to seek headlines, applause, and partisan advantage. What is much harder is to sit with the families who have lost loved ones, to listen to those carrying physical and emotional wounds years after the cameras have left, to comfort those whose businesses were destroyed, whose livelihoods disappeared, and whose futures were altered forever. That is why we must resist the temptation to turn national tragedy into political theater. The lives of Kenyans are too precious, the wounds too deep, for us to treat them as instruments of political competition. For decades, successive political generations have condemned these tragedies without fundamentally resolving them. I understand why. It is not easy to confront such issues. If you act, you are criticized. If you do not act, you are criticized. You are, in many ways and in many respects, damned if you do and damned if you don't. But there comes a point when a nation must choose action over hesitation. There comes a point when the cost of doing nothing becomes greater than the cost of trying to do something. Leadership is not about choosing what is comfortable. It is about choosing what is necessary. And so, we have chosen to act, not for ourselves, not for political advantage, but for Kenya. Our commitment is not in words alone. It is also in deeds. I remember very well when we discussed this both in the NADCO framework and also in the 10-point agenda UDA ODM framework. And I remember the occasion that has been spoken to by the Honorable Junet and the Honorable Oburu, when I had occasion with the late Prime Minister Raila Odinga. And when I told him that I had made the decision because of the consultations we had had, that it was time to compensate the victims and to set up a framework for reparations. And he encouraged me and he told me, Mr. President, this is the right thing to do. And let's do it now. I remember also that subsequently, when I issued the proclamation, Professor Makau here, who rarely asks for my time, asked for an opportunity to see me. And he came and we sat down, I think somewhere in there, here, and he told me, Mr. President, I never knew that you would agree to do this, because in many respects, it amounts to admission by you and government And so I told him, we have buried our heads in the sand for far too long. And it's time for us as a nation, and for me as the leader of the nation, to stand up, own up, and do something about it. That is why, through Gazette Notice number 12002 of 2025 and other instruments, I set in motion the process of compensating victims of protests and public unrest. As part of that process, I appointed a distinguished panel chaired by Professor Makau Mutua, honoring a commitment that I had made together with my friend, the late former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, that we would not merely speak about this issue, but walk the journey to its conclusion. I tasked the panel with helping us confront a challenge that Kenya had carried for far too long, and with developing a framework that would place victims, justice, accountability, and national reconciliation at its center. Subsequently, the court directed that the framework be developed by the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. And that is why today we gather to launch the fruit of that work. And as was said earlier, I subsequently issued Presidential Proclamation number 1 of 2026 in accordance with Article 2542 of the Constitution, charging the Kenya National Human Commission on Human Rights with the responsibility of developing and submitting a framework to guide the provision of compensation for victims of human rights violations, including those arising from public protests. The proclamation was subsequently published as Kenya Gazette number 3114. I wish to commend the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights for their dedication, wisdom, and patriotism in delivering this framework for compensation and reparations to victims of human rights violations during protests and picketing. Madam Clarice Oganga and your team, you have discharged this responsibility in honor of those who have suffered this injustice and to the benefit of the nation, not an individual, not a group of individuals. And I want to commend you. Your statement has been profound. I have listened very carefully on what you have had to say about this responsibility and mandate, and it has spoken to all the issues that would have required attention in this exercise. I also wish to commend Professor Mutua and the panel for their invaluable contribution to this process. Professor, again, and the panel, I want to say congratulations and thank you very much for making a contribution. Allow me to say, when the courts pronounce themselves on how this exercise should be carried forward, I got advice from different people. One group said the court, we should appeal this decision of the court. Another group said we should implement whatever the court has said in the interest of time. So when I assessed, to me, it didn't matter who did what, but it mattered to the victims and to the country that for once we try and resolve this issue. And I want to thank again Professor Makau, who came to consult with me. And we agreed with him that while it was okay for us to go to court and appeal, but we must also agree with the court, proceed with the process, so that Kenyans can for once know that we are committed to our word. This framework represents a major milestone in protecting the rights of those harmed during protests, advancing social reconciliation, providing redress for victims, and strengthening our democracy. As a demonstration of our commitment, we have already allocated Kenya shillings 2 billion towards compensation and reparation for those who have suffered verified harm arising from protests and unrest, including affected families, injured citizens, businesses lost, and law enforcement officers injured in the course of their duties. But let me be clear. This is, as has been said by many, the beginning of the journey, not the end. Let me also be clear about what these payments are and what they are not. They are not the price of life, of pain, or of loss. No amount of money could ever be. The Kenya shillings 2 billion we have committed cannot replace a son or a daughter. It cannot restore years and lot of trauma. It cannot fully compensate a family, a trader, or a community for all that has been taken away from them. What it does represent is the state's acknowledgement that harm occurred, that victims matter, and that a nation heals by tending to its wounds rather than pretending they do not exist. Nor is this redress a reward for violence, looting, criminality, or unlawful conduct. Neither should it be understood as a license for disorder on one hand, or excesses and violations of rights on the other. It is redress for harm suffered by citizens, an affirmation that the rule of law applies equally to everyone. And let no one mistake compassion for impunity. Compensation does not retire accountability. The law applies equally to the citizen and the officer, to the protester and the police. Where wrongdoing occurred, accountability must follow its proper course. I have come to see our country as a single body. It has many parts, and no two are alike. The hand is not the foot, the eye is not the ear, yet all belong to one body and share one life. When a thorn pierces the foot, it is not the foot alone that suffers. The whole body stops to remove it. So it is with us. The young person injured in a protest, the trader who lost a lifetime's work to looting, the police officer hurt while keeping the peace, and the family mourning a loved one are not rival camps. They are all Kenyans. They are all part of one national body. When any one of them is wounded, Kenya is wounded. And a nation does not heal by choosing whose pain matters. It heals by acknowledging all suffering, pursuing justice for all, and committing itself to doing better. That is why this framework is only the beginning. The journey will be complete only when we achieve two other things. First, a comprehensive legal framework that fully operationalizes and protects the rights guaranteed under Article 37 of our Constitution. The right to assemble, demonstrate, picket, and petition peacefully. I'm happy that the Kenya Human Rights Commission have undertaken to work with all the stakeholders to develop this law that will operationalize and protect the rights guaranteed under Article 37 of our Constitution. Secondly, to reform and have a training manual that reshape our police service and how they manage public demonstrations, ensuring professionalism, restraint, accountability, and respect for constitutional rights. Together, these reforms will strengthen the health of our democracy, because compensation, properly understood, is not an end in itself. Compensation addresses the consequences of past failure, but reform must prevent their recurrence. We must also recognize a new challenge of our time. Artificial intelligence and digital platforms have transformed how information is created, shared, and consumed, especially among young people. While these technologies have expanded access to information, created new opportunities for learning, innovation, and commerce, and enriched democratic participation, they can also be used and have been used to spread misinformation, manipulate public discourse, inflame tensions, and fuel unrest. We must therefore be firm that technology must serve truth, responsibility, and national unity, not deception, division, and violence. If we remain committed to this path, this framework will mark more than the compensation of victims. It will mark the beginning of the end of a painful chapter in our national life. A chapter in which demonstrations often ended in injury, loss of life, destruction, and division. A chapter that has burdened generations of Kenyans for far too long, and a chapter that this generation must now resolve. This, our generation. The future of Kenya cannot be one in which citizens fear exercising their constitutional rights. Neither can it be one in which legitimate grievances are hijacked by violence, criminality, destruction, and political opportunism, or met by excessive force and violation of constitutional rights. We must reject both extremes. We must protect the right to protest. We must protect life. We must protect property. And we must protect human dignity. And above all, we must remember that before we are protesters, police officers, traders, leaders, or activists, we are Kenyans. Today, we affirm that every life matters. Every victim deserves recognition, and every Kenyan has a right to exercise their constitutional freedoms without fear. Let us therefore hold fast our constitutional rights to peacefully assemble and to non-violence in how we engage one another as citizens, as leaders, or even with our security agencies. This is not an isolated act. I think many leaders here have spoken to how we move together and how sometimes we treat each other not so fairly. This act that we have decided as a nation that we must do, that we must confront what has harmed many people, made us to lose lives, made us to lose property, made us to create division. We must confront as a nation. And I say it is not an act in isolation. It is part of what we are rebuilding as a nation. And it goes beyond money. I have listened very carefully to the governor of Wajir. He was emotional today as he was emotional in Wajir. And because it speaks to how people feel. When I stood on the platform in Wajir on the 1st of June, and the emotion in the field, I saw tears in many leaders and many people in Wajir. It made it look like it was a favor the state was doing for them, when actually it was their right to belong to Kenya, like everybody. They were so emotional about it, you would think we are giving them, or we are making them any favor. But it speaks to how people feel. I remember very well, when I say this is not an isolated incident, I remember very well when, I think it was on the 5th of February 2025, when I stood on the field there at Orahe Stadium in Wajir and signed the proclamation to remove all the encumbrances and the discrimination that was subjected to the people of northern Kenya especially, that made them look like secondary citizens or, citizens of a lesser class than the rest of Kenya. It wasn't about money. It was about dignity. It was about recognizing that there are wrongs that we have committed as a nation to fellow Kenyans, subjecting them, to treatment that went deep into their dignity. When I stood in Mandera and announced the construction of the road from Isiolo to Mandera, it was the same thing, that a whole part of Kenya, by policy, was relegated because of the policy that was said that there are parts of Kenya, section paper number 1, or was it number 10, of 1965, a policy document of government that said some parts of Kenya will be developed and others will not. You know, these are things people take for granted. But as a result of what was done by government, huge sections of Kenya, northern part of Kenya especially, was denied the opportunity to develop like the rest of Kenya. It is still the same thing. That's why I'm saying what we are doing today is part of correcting the injustices of the past. It is the same thing. When I stood 3 months ago in Mombasa and pronounced myself on what we are doing to redress the squatter problem in our coast region that has subjected millions of citizens to the indignity of being squatters, secondary citizens in their own country. They are treated lesser than other Kenyans. It is part of repairing our nation. I remember very well, and this is a good occasion for me to say, when I decided to appoint General Ogolla, I was correcting the negative profiling of some of our communities, that there are positions that are reserved for some people and there are positions that can never be occupied by other people. An injustice and a stigma on a whole community. It needed to be corrected. And it is the same thing when it came to the formation of the broad-based government. I remember very well, my brother, the Honorable Raila Odinga, had a different opinion of who should be the Minister for Finance. And I remember I told him that, my brother, if there is one place I will defy you, is that I am going to appoint a person from Luo Nyanza to be the first Cabinet Secretary or Minister for Finance. Again, to correct a negative profiling of a whole community that they don't care about property. You know, property belongs to some people, the economy belongs to some. No. Listen, good people. And it is also the same reason why I have made the decision that development in Kenya is never going to be done again on account of which citizen has voted in which direction. That we are going to develop this nation equally, and every part of Kenya deserves a share of development like any other. That we are going to remove the mentality that there are those who have more shares than others. This is one nation. And finally, when we developed the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, it was also about correcting this nation. You know, there is a perception in Kenya that it is okay for people to be poor. There are people who are made to be poor. There are people who are made to stay in slums. and there are the rest of us. There are people who are supposed to remain jobless. There are people, do you know, for example, good people, when we talk about the people in slums, just explain to me how the rest of us here have houses that have 3-4 toilets. There is a citizen in Kenya who doesn't have a toilet and has to pay to use a toilet, and it is supposed to be okay. How is that supposed to be okay? What kind of indignity do we make other citizens to go through? That there are people who become sick, but they cannot go to hospital. They will wait to die because they have no way of paying their way in hospital. And it's supposed to be okay. And then when we rally the country to carry everybody on board, that those of us who have a privilege to have, those of us who have a privilege to have a pay slip, to have a job, can extend our contribution so that we can carry the people in the slums along. We can carry those who cannot go to hospital along. You hear people say, we are defenders of the dignity of the pay slip. So, what about the indignity of being jobless? What about the indignity of suffering in a country that we are all supposed to belong? You know, these are things we must correct. And it doesn't matter to me the consequences. We must correct. And so, this occasion, I said at the beginning, is a very solemn occasion. And it is a very consequential occasion. Part of why, my good party leader, part of why maybe you got a late invitation, and I thought about it this morning, was because this occasion originally was supposed to be a private occasion. It was supposed to be a small occasion for the commission to come and give me a report. But I said no. You know, there are people who don't know the consequence of this occasion. There are people who underestimate the consequence of this occasion. It is part of us getting and making peace with ourselves as a nation. And I really want to persuade us as leaders to lead from the front. Many people have spoken to how it is easy to dodge this kind of thing. You know, there are so many reports that have been done. You know, one good friend of mine told me, you know, if you go this journey, you could easily be taken to The Hague because you are actually admitting that your government and those others have committed crimes. But so be it. We must confront this occasion. I've had to make very difficult decisions, so this is no excuse. Let's make this one as well, so that we can take the nation forward. And I want to congratulate the Kenya Human Rights Commission. You have done a good job. You've really done a good job. I mean, when somebody does a good job, let us call it what it is. Carry forward. And I have listened to you very carefully, and you have said that we need to make resources available to you and your commission so that you can discharge your responsibility, because it is now almost a requirement that whatever it is we do, whether we are keeping the peace or we are running development, it must be in tandem with the rights of people. And so I agree with you, and I am very happy that you are making this request when everybody is sitting here. The people who appropriate money are sitting here. The people who work on a budget, they are sitting here. The executive is here. The deputy president is here. You are listening to what he has said. The leaders of majority, the leaders of minority, the people who run parliament, our speakers are here. I think the chair, Clarice, and her team deserve the request they have made. Yeah, and all of us will pull from wherever we can to make sure that this happens. As you are aware, this conversation we are having in Kenya is not an isolated conversation. It is the same conversation we will be having tomorrow in France. And we will be having tomorrow a conversation about fairness and about how we treat each other. We will be making, personally, I will be taking a very candid position that as a people, we do not want relationships with others based on dependency. No, we want a relationship of sovereign equality. I will be taking the position tomorrow on a relationship not based on charity, aid, or assistance, but on mutually beneficial partnerships. Not a relationship based on extraction of our resources, but on investment that benefits us and benefits those who are investing. It is a conversation about relationships. How are we living together? We will be pitching for a different international governance and international financial architecture. One that recognizes everybody. You know, we have had a United Nations that exactly treats some as more equal than others. We are saying it is no longer tenable. It is no longer acceptable to have an organization that is not representative, that is not democratic, and that is not accountable. We're going to be taking a very firm position, and Kenya will lead the way on behalf of this continent. Because they say any injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. And we do not be victims of that. I think there was a saying that when they came for I don't know who, you did nothing. Then they came for the next guy, and then when finally they came for you, there was nobody. So we have to take our position. And that is how we're going to relate. That's how we're going to build a much more fairer world as we build a much more fairer country. Ladies and gentlemen, let the measure of our success not be in how much we pay, but in how much we reform, so that the wounds we tend today are never inflicted again. That is the promise of this day. That is the responsibility of this generation. That is the Kenya we must build together. And this is my solemn commitment to the nation. May God bless you all, and may God bless our great country, Kenya. Asanteni.
know we're all standing, but this deserves a standing, another standing ovation and a clap, kindly. Thank you, Your Excellency. We'll all be upstanding to wind up now with the national anthem, the anthem. That brings us to the end of this session. Your Excellency, with your permission, will request one photo